Councilmember Shaw.
Okay.
Thank you.
To order. Before I go to the city clerk,
Also note for the record that Councilmember Shahal will.
we're having some technical issues with our video at
The state law in order to properly participation by the public. We're having some technical difficulties. However, the audio portion is working. And because the audio portion to otherwise work on trying to rehabilitate closed session for that to occur. So, Mayor, what I would suggest is we proceed with closed.
I'd like to describe the two items.
Council regarding existing litigation, cases related Santa Clara. E is conference with labor negotiators, city representatives as listed, employee organizations. It looks like all of them. Fire, another group of employees, Unit 6, unclassified mid-management, Unit 9, unclassified police management, 9A, unclassified fire management, 9B, unclassified electric utility management, 9E.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go to the public. Does any member of the public want to say some words about closed session? Please come forward. Has there been cards filled out?
Yes, we have a card for.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's just odd to see that up. Thank you. There. Now we can see you better. Okay, go ahead.
You have with the public employees. As you know, there are 11 public employee organizations involved in the negotiation that you shortly will discuss in your closed session. Accuse himself from this exact type of agenda item going forward because he is a full-time paid negotiator for the Association of Federal, State, County, and Municipal Employees, District 50 staff members that you hired directly. Your city attorney and your city manager have cooperated in allowing Mr. Ferraris to have an unlawful candidate ballot designation. Okay, that would be fine. That's his choice. It's a political decision. However, by allowing him to put down retired when they know that he's not retired because he's a full-time staff negotiator. So I'm speaking on this item in specific so that just as a request from the public, when you go in and when you begin to get the discussion in private with your staff members, the other employee negotiations, if they trade it out in any way for him to have this unlawful ballot designation in exchange for something related to the negotiations that you're going to.
Anyone's welcome for regarding closed session only. Items on closed session. A legal case we have with the related company. Everything else that's on the agenda, the meeting starts at 7 o'clock. So if you came for a copy of the agenda, then now's the time to speak. If you
Madam
came
Mayor.
on, if you were here for those items.
Public presentation.
Oh, grounds. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anyone else, City Clerk? All right, we will
Madam Mayor,
now.
if I could just
Yes.
note, I'm sorry, our policy contemplates your
Does anybody object? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mayor.
We'll be in closed session, and hopefully we'll have fixed all of our issues so that
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community.
The manager or city attorney to talk about the technical.
Thank you, Mayor. We were having difficulty with our Zoom feed earlier.
Thank you very much, city manager. City clerk, roll call.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And in accordance with the Brown Act Government Code Section 54953 meeting. Councilmember Shahal, at this time, I ask you to confirm that the agenda.
Councilmember Chahal? Are you there? You need to unmute yourself, Raj.
Thank you. Also, can you please state whether any member that, and I'm sorry, did you respond to my question if your agenda was a roll call vote? So with that, I'll begin with the roll call.
Here.
Councilmember Board Member Jane.
Here.
Councilmember Board Member Call. The AB 23 announcement, members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote efficient and consistent manner. Please note that as the presiding and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome and thank you for your the clients and or organizations that you represent. This is pursuant.
Meeting, the council is back in person and is conducting participation from your home or office. Members of the public can still join. Please raise your hand on the Zoom application or press *9 on you to speak. As a friendly reminder, members of the public have to lower your hand to ensure that members of the public are seeking to speak. City Attorney.
However, there was no conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. 1B was not met on, but may be trailed.
Session after if there's time before midnight.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, that was that.
Options, reconsiderations. Does any member of the council or the public or the... So, Ukrainian independence. Ukrainian Independence Day commemoration and culture. This evening, we are pleased to have the Ukrainian located right here in Santa Clara. Their mission is to promote Alexei Korosh, Consul of Ukraine from the Consulate General on Pilogova, I'm so sorry, of Sister Cities International here today to accept the proclamation. Has it been a year already?
Santa Clara City Council, distinguished guests, members of the anniversary of Ukrainians' independence, and to recognize the city's proclamation. A simple but profound truth that every nation today, as Ukraine continues to defend by people, by those who serve, those who volunteer, this recognition of Santa Clara in order of Ukrainian Independence Day, and to see this solidarity only once, but continues to stand Santa Clara County, Santa Clara City. Thank you for this proclamation, and all people who have this active position and work together. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
And support to the Ukrainian community, especially here in the Women's League, Branch 107. Do we have a lot?
Again, thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you so much. I have to show you.
I told you. We knew. Oh, no. Thank
Isn't that fun?
I don't know. You get them run for the money. Yeah. I didn't get a good bag, yeah.
Okay, for our next special order of business, the city is soccer park experienced disruptions in January, and impacts to field availability were also anticipated during the scheduled. Football Company, LLC, has awarded the city a one-time grant of these youth activity scholarship. City Manager, did you have anything to say?
$15,000 to support the impacts to youth. Worth noting, the agreement with the NFL provided significant community benefit to a value of $1.2 million, as well as here, the city has already requested cost provide lights at Wilson School, which was a temporary. So we will have a similar process with all of the youth sports groups to obtain receipts. 49ers, as per the city council policy, where individual groups are invited.
Now,
Yes, there has also
disruption.
there's already been a process.
I'd like to invite Emily Swide to the podium to say.
On behalf of the San Francisco 49ers, I want to start by thanking the Santa Clara City Council for your continued part to support Santa Clara's youth sports programs with today's donation. We launched the 40 the people who live here. Since then, we've been fortunate to partner to continuing to invest in opportunities like this one that will benefit the community for generations.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Member Park, do I have to? Is there any member of the public? All of our votes this evening are going to be roll call. Thanks, Raj. Thank
Councilmember Shahal.
Yes.
Councilmember Hart.
you very much. All right, next is the consent calendar. Council member, staff member, or community member would like to pull. Vice Mayor Gonzalez. To approve the entire consent calendar.
Madam Mayor, we have a card from Parkash.
On a consent calendar?
Yes, 3H.
For okay, and engineering master services agreements for SVP, Silicon Valley Power, and in the Electric Utility Capital Fund.
That's correct, ma'am.
Welcome.
Yes, to many, many cities and counties in the United States, engineering services, so we look forward to it. And we'd like to request that thank you.
Thank you, and if you wait about 30 seconds, we're going to approve.
Time.
Familiar. Okay, nice to
you.
see you. Thank you. Welcome to Santa
We
Clara.
met last time, and thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, City Clerk. It includes that, of course.
So Councilmember Board Member Shahal. Board Member Cox.
Yes.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mayor and Chair Gilmore.
Public presentations. And these are for items that are public here?
Yes.
Okay, followed by Nicholas.
Issue of the Apple Fab, the Environmental Protection Agency, for serious violations, chemicals and toxins in Santa Clara next to the public without information. The people of California and this country are entitled to know what's in their neighborhood. I think in the light of deregulation agenda of the to make sure that the community is not going to be contaminated. Maybe Apple funding or the fact you get money for this facility, you don't want to, with somebody who lived in the complex next to the facility. I lived in this area before there was a Silicon Valley, that computers were safe. There was no problems with the computer industry. The reality is there studies and people have been sickened. The communities and the officials have to take responsibility to make sure that people aren't harmed. The people who get sick, situation, the fire department has been there. There have been citations, as I said, by the EPA, and it should not be allowed. And that's why I'm here today. And I think that action needs to.
Thank you, Mayor Gilmore. I will go next. I have slides. A former neighbor of the semiconductor facility at 3250 Scott Boulevard. You should know up front that and I will not raise them here. Tonight is only about prospective legislative policy, the things the court cannot legislate for you. Nestled directly with the Santa Clara Square apartments, that's thousands of apartments. The building's unmarked, as you can see on the right. There's no hazardous materials and explosives. Here, explicitly in column A, liability again is for the court, but planning standards. And column C is notification. That's something the city could do simply voluntarily at any time without resolving or conceding anything in the case. Chemicals including arsenic gas, phosphine, chlorine gas, hydrogen fluoride, and others. In an unmarked creek trails, a Water of the United States trail, the Saratoga San Tomas Creek. And the policy gap is the general plan contemplates at least a 500-foot. The public record spans decades, from the 1980s Toxic Gas Ordinance, the 1995 Appellate Reversal and LSI Logic, and more. Every institution has spoken, but the city is not speaking to its own residents. 4 gaps, all prospective and legislative. No has no enforcement in the city code, and more fab siting decisions are coming. I have 5 requests, each
You
legislative.
may not know. Can't respond in any detail to what you're saying. It's public presentations, but I believe our staff is sent that. And
Yeah, I said the comment, and the slides are here. I do have requests that I feel are legislative and administrative, so policy outside of the litigation, which
we get that.
Okay.
Yes. Nicholas, please come forward, followed by Howard. Welcome.
You to something that we're planning. So to introduce myself, Nick Morales, I am representing my ministry, New Heaven, New Earth. And what New Heaven, New Earth wants to do is recognize a county. So we're reaching out to the neighboring cities to invite anyone who would like to come, including city officials as yourself. And it'll be happening in around mid-October, I would like to say. Retired first responder, I'd like to say thank you for your service, and you're more than welcome to come. And that'll be it for me. Thank you so much.
So thank you for introducing yourself, and we look forward to your invitation.
Well by now. And I'm just here because it's pretty much the end of the season for a lot of stuff I do for the city. I want to thank the Parks and Rec for very profitable for me. Thank you very much. And I am looking forward to the last part of the season will be Halloween. What is it? October 24th. But anyway, I'm here to make a new business in town just because it's across the street from an old business. Hey, pretty good. And the jelly donuts are more jelly than stands. Try it out. It's the first time I heard hate for me. But anyway, make sure you come on out to the Halloween in the park. You wish you'd work on that parking lot down there for the commuters. I heard that they rent that parking lot every year, but now it's over. My business will start increasing again because they do block out somewhere between halfway. Maybe somebody can look into that. I would love to see that contract, how much the city's getting paid for rent with whatever they can. They do not own city property. Please stop it. But don't throw some hate
No.
at me.
I'm not sure I believe your jelly donut thing, but that's okay. That's all right. I'll go try my.
Last November 18, Council continued repeal of the prohibition of pedestrians to after FIFA. 2008 County Expressway Plan is approved. Highways. Then, city staff stonewalled for 14 years. The council referred repeal to staff. Staff continued stonewalling to council that the BOS supports blanket prohibitions of pedestrians from expressways. The city does not prohibit use of sidewalks on expressways. Resolution 5603 rebutting these lies by stating them after I was allowed to construct a 10-lane freeway through Santa Clara by destroying sidewalks, bike lanes. Expressways have fewer stoplights, but are no more, quote, high-speed 5-mile-per-hour traffic lane, the same speed as most expressways. San Jose has 23 miles of photos show Santa Tomas before and after, increasing lanes from 6. Highway staff wants to, again, cite your resolution as authority by their decades of stonewalling. Thank you.
Thank you, Akos. As you know, we can't
Scheduled to come back to you on October 6th. It is on our internal tickler file, and I do know the Public Works Department is working on bringing that item back to you.
Good evening.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to make you aware and the public aware per our disruption policy that apparently we're having some applications are impacted. But we wanted to at least make folks available that we're aware of the problem, and I think the tech folks are trying to work to resolve that.
Okay, very good. Welcome.
Hi. California Elections Code 13017, A states that the voter, and 4, it uses a word or prefix such as former or ex, which means a prior status. The only exception is the use of the word retired. Now, if that candidate possesses another more recent intervening principal profession, vocation, or occupation. Now, in the situation of this year's Santa Clara before moving into a staff role with AFSCME Council 57. Now, if one is continuing to work for pay, the simple act of applying to receive Social Security for likewise resigning from a government position and immediately entering into a new full-time job does not grant someone legal status to use the word retired in one's ballot designation, that one may not use a former status in one's candidate ballot designation. Former, never okay. Ex, never okay. If one cannot fit the single word of Ferrari's own Facebook page clearly states that he resigned from the city of Santa Clara on July 22nd, 2024, and on the exact same day began a full-time job as a union representative with AFSCME, Northern California. Be a wonderful job. I worked in the labor movement long enough myself for enough years to receive a small pension on my own. However, to allow Mr. Ferraris the political tactic of conveying to the electorate that he is retired for even one day for the purpose of the definition of candidate ballot designation. The voters deserve not to be misled. Gary has a job. He works for AFSCME. That directly supervises the assistant city clerk, and she supervises subordinate staff. They know, or should have known, because I brought this to the clerk's office multiple times before having to come here tonight. The issue is that the word retired must be able to stand alone, and candidate Ferraris has a new profession for more than 2 years, which means that retired.
Everyone heard. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Anthony Becker.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you all had a good summer. One of the last council meetings, this council took the vote to do two things: place the investigation, the discussion on the agenda, be probably more delays, or someone else will probably end up taking the fall, but I don't want to think negatively on this, and I hope that we find out who disclosed the information to FIFA. So first, I want to thank the council for taking it to the deep down transparent thing about, as I said, who released the Chronicle. Second, the election ethics advisor situation sounds just like it did just the past few years by not being prepared. I blame the consultant during elections, yet the mayor wants an ethics commission. Good question, huh? It makes no sense. It really makes me feel like we don't want an ethics consultant during the elections like it used to be, because then we wouldn't be holding consultant. Suds was there, I was there, Kevin was there, Raj was there, we all saw it. Since that election a decade ago, it seems that we don't care about campaign ethics. In 2024, we got a phony ethics pledge from Tom Shanks, a guy who has himself problematic ethical issues, and remember what I've said about him in the past. Now to a topic that has gained some heat lately about performance reviews that I wanted to set the record straight, the attorney hirings. I can remember even then in closed session, and out of it, the mayor and councilmember Watanabe were doing everything that they could to undermine this process. Just like other times when they lied and accused me of violence, they tried to. Councilmember James sent an email to HR, Mayor Gilmore and me as the vice mayor, trying to initiate this process in the February of 2024. In my capacity as vice mayor, the mayor purposely avoided the topic. I took the lead, and this is where staff told me that it would not be a good look to have the performance review for the mayor and council if mayor and councilmember Watanabe were not there. So basically, again, now 2 members caused the delay now, and it makes the city out of compliance. Now, the mayor says that this is wrong that we're out of compliance, yet it's the mayor who prevented it from happening by hiring the disgraced failure that was Deanna Santana. It was you who voted for it, caused it, including Kathy Watanabe, and now we are the impact of it. I knew when Jovan was hired and his salary demand, credit for it when it's being fixed. It's getting old, but thankfully, you're on your way out of office. But again, the topic of performance reviews, Mayor Gilmore's close friend and confidant, James Rowan, said that he notified that it should be he filing the complaints against Mayor, his friend, one who avoided any such review, including Councilmember Watanabe. Both made sure that the review process did not happen, and I called a jury report that was conveniently mentioned that Mayor Gilmore was interviewed during that period. When I noticed, too, on the performance review debate that there's so-called nonprofit Stand Up for Santa Clara management and performance reviews that they thought were a joke. Stand Up for Santa Clara says that they are not political, but their history says otherwise, and it's no surprise that they're starting up around this campaign again. The city has never held them accountable about it. This is no transparency. They created the new website, deleted their entire Facebook page, was the subject of an investigation themselves, getting rid of any trace of their political activity, including all the political ads that they ran during an election season. This is the same organization that's still not proved their nonprofit status from the IRS, still says on the website that on their old website they're 501c3, and on their new one they don't even have that anymore. So what is it? Why, again, can anyone explain how they had a political forum with the old Quad Association in 2016? No. None of you can explain that. And again, we just choose to ignore Stand Up for Santa Clara. Why? We cannot be here because it's directly tied to that. And as I agree with what Suds is doing about water and data centers, I believe that the city should take steps to regulate data centers as what other cities and communities are doing across this nation right now. Discussion with the city council and a planning commission to have a joint discussion about this and what we can do to come up with a regulation for data centers. This was prevented by not being able to put it forward from the city council. I know for sure when I talked to the city manager about it, yeah, that's right, big data just like big pharma. The more I think back to that convo, I think I should have kept pushing because why is it big data is calling the shots here in Santa Clara? Currently sits. Either way, something has to be done for data centers, and Councilmember Jane's request is one step, I think, in that direction, but there needs to be more done about data centers, especially what's being currently done around the nation. I know by not having this joint discussion when I was pushing for it the entire time, I even had it on a priority setting session. Oh, by the way, whatever happens to all those priority setting sessions? Oh yeah, it gets in the back, it gets stuck on the back burner, that's what happens. But I do want to know for an answer. So I hope that the Planning Commission will accept my apology, and I know that Lance on there was one of the biggest proponents of having a discussion about data centers, and we should have had that. So I want it comes down to performance reviews, Mayor. Please don't mislead the public, especially when it comes to who created the salary situation in the city. It was you, and it's always been you. And thank you.
8-3. Online? Go ahead, please.
Good day, first responders and current responders. Thanks to what I just heard. Jury. Mr. Becker, as usual, felony or any assault. As a matter of fact, I reappointed by the Civil Service Commission on a motion from mayor commissions or refuses a person who just also told a lie about Tom Shanks. I guess I mean majority of the city council, not city to do, lie. Now I will conclude. Mr. Becker is inviting his friend of Santa Clara. Data centers, Mr. Becker, one numbers, if he can ever tell the truth. Well, who knows?
Thank you. Edward, go ahead.
Zone for entertainment. I don't know if, it's taking away power and water away from the people to the power extension from the north coming into this. It started for that groundbreaking just north of Levi State soon.
Okay.
Say that I'd like to invite you all to our mixer tomorrow. We are really seeing a lot more activity in our Santa Clara. They've been with our chamber. They've expanded to 3 times the size. And it's from 6 to 7:30 at Method 42, right off of New Business with the certificate of recognition, and offer them training with our small business growth plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
I'm going to hobble right back. Okay.
Yeah. Take your time.
Good evening, council members. I'm here tonight as a member of the City Hall Community Advisory Committee. I want to be clear tonight that I'm speaking only for myself as one committee member, not on behalf of the full CAC. A recommendation that will serve Santa Clara and its residents well. There's real energy and goodwill on this committee, and I want the council to know that. That said, I want to share some concerns about our timeline going forward and prepare the presentation for the committee. I want to note that I appreciate the effort staff is putting into this work. It's clearly a big task, and I know they're working hard to prepare thorough, substantive information for us. Second meeting, the first real working meeting of the committee, could have been prepared well before mid-August. At the meeting that should have occurred yesterday, we could simply have been given a deeper dive into the options that were and we could have learned more about the site tours staff would like to offer the committee. None of that happened, and the cancellation wasn't discussed with our elected committee chair beforehand. We've also been given very limited update. We've been given is September 21st, and we only learned about that date in the same email from last week that canceled our August meeting. We have no other confirmed dates beyond that. We're told that the target is a recommendation to council within 9 months of our first meeting, which puts us around April 2027. Between the canceled meeting and the current pace of roughly 1 or 2 months between meetings, more date options for these meetings, possibly alternate meeting locations, could all help us find the time we need. I'd like to ask the council to encourage staff to prioritize getting these meetings scheduled. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. As you're aware, we are not able to answer that, but staff heard loud and clear. That item's pulled for discussion, and this item was pulled back in June 23rd, 2026. Action on the May 5th, 2026 special city council meeting minutes and the May 26th, 2026 joint city council and authorities concurrent and Santa Clara Stadium Authority Board.
In our one-on-one, and I went back through my notes, and at the time, when we look at the meeting minutes for council, we were backed up 2 months. We had approvals for meeting minutes or other actions, what the actions at the previous meeting were. Usually when we talk about the minutes and approval of the minutes, it's usually the approval of minutes from the previous meeting. But when the previous meeting or the minutes that are being approved are from 2 months ago and we have nothing from the previous on what we've done, if the public is going to be able to do reconsiderations, if the public is going to be able to take actions or make comments on what we've done, right? If the meeting minutes aren't published until 2 meetings after, backed up in terms of meeting minutes, our meeting minutes aren't that complex. We don't have narrative meeting minutes. We have action minutes. Those action minutes should be fairly easy to stay on top of. We went over schedules for how city council meetings are planned, but there is no step in there. All the approval steps are way too late for approving the meeting minutes from the previous meeting, and I just wanted to point that out. We're better caught up, but we are not caught up, and I would like us to do a little bit better. And if you have some comments on why this occurs.
For May meetings that were approved in June, so I'm very confused about your comments, but City Manager, do you have a comment on these comments?
Sure, thank you. Occur anytime a council action or agenda packet is created. For example, we are currently sitting at a meeting on Tuesday the 18th. Your very next meeting is on the 25th. That packet will be published later this week. It is not possible to, at the very next meeting, whether there is a 1 week or a 2 week gap in our current process and with our current staffing in our clerk's office, to provide you the minutes from May 5th, May 19th, May 6th, and May 26th on them. And so you were set to take one action to review and approve all of those minutes. I understand one of the comments that the council member, you don't need minutes to reconsider an item that you voted on at a prior meeting. I think on a number of occasions, council members have requested at the very next meeting to reconsider an item. The minutes are not required for that action. In addition, the council, a process that has been executed for the public to reconsider an item, but
The public can reconsider.
Yeah, they can. It gets submitted in a council member.
Councilmember Hardy?
That means that for all the previous meetings in June, we had nothing approved for May. That was my big complaint. In fact, in June, our minutes that we were approving were way back. That's fine. But I think that we need to provide the public with the information that they need so that they can make a request for reconsideration. I hear that the public's not allowed to make the request for consideration. Actually, and we've talked about this, I'm surprised that you don't remember that we've talked about this in governance and ethics. Anyone can make the motion. This was the subject to a discussion in governance and ethics about redundancy in the process. This is something that, again, these are the kinds of things that if we don't take them seriously in our process, then we are denying the public an ability to participate in the meeting. We were more caught up. But the prior meeting, we did not have the minutes approved for a single meeting in the previous month. This is the problem I'm looking at. When I hear that it is not possible, it's hard to believe that we cannot do that. I know that I'm on other committees, I'm on other commissions where this is done very well. I mean, we use the term "the minutes" to refer to the previous meeting's minutes. And at this point, past midnight, when people come for an item and ultimately have to go home to take care of family, for them not to be able to see in the minutes whether or not they need to, look at, request a reconsideration, I think this is unfair to the public. And again, this doesn't make things better, but I brought this up not because I thought about this, but because somebody in the public asked me a question, and I said, well, these are my notes, but I want to see what the minutes say, and there were no minutes available. And when I looked into it, there were no minutes available. And I stepped it up and got here, but I think that we have a lot of work to do if we really want to be useful to the public when it comes to just taking part in our meetings. Thank you.
Councilmember Jane?
There is the video that is available by the next meeting, and since we only do action minutes, any member of the public that wants to know the details of how a decision was made, they pretty much have to next meeting. But I do have a problem in general with minutes being late. Often, this council approves the minutes for the Parks and Rec Committee and for Cultural Committee. Often I read those minutes well after events that they had planned have passed. Sometimes those minutes are 4 months. We could do better, but with respect to, council meetings are almost happening every week now for the rest of the year. I understand it's very difficult for staff to try to get the minutes done for the next meeting.
Right, City Clerk, we have, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, please, Assistant City Clerk.
So I hear the council members' concern. Just a second here. Those went to council on May 19th. There were 3 sets of April minutes. It's 2 years. And I know that because we strive to bring those minutes back as soon as possible. However, in speaking with, we can bring 2 sets, within 2 weeks, and not save them all for the next month, if that is.
Of our meetings. We're supposed to have meetings twice a month. Now we're having lots of extra meetings and special meetings, and I appreciate everything that.
I would like to challenge the call for the question.
What does that mean?
If a majority of council rebuttals, and there are some comments I'd like to make.
What do we have to do now?
I think under our policies, Madam Mayor, there can be a motion and a second
debate.
Second.
All right, motion and second to extend the debate. City Clerk, when you're ready.
Councilmember Shahal?
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy?
No.
Mayor Gilmore?
No, so that fails. City Clerk, when you're ready, we have a motion by Councilmember Hardy, second.
Councilmember Shahal?
I vote yes. Just for record, it's not good.
Okay.
Works. Thank you, Councilmember Chahal. We're trying to fix it. We're seeing if it's the mic. Try that one, Karen.
You want me to try that one or not?
Can you hear me? There we go.
I guess we have to turn them on. Oh, that one you have to turn on.
That one's different.
Yeah, that one's different than the others.
I can hear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, City Clerk?
Gilmore?
Yes. Did everyone vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and Vice Mayor
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Forgot one. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on, I rated TN, which is Transit Neighborhood, to R6, which is Transit Neighborhood Residential, continued from the July 14th City Council meeting. So this is a public hearing and it is open.
You last updated a zoning code update in January of 2024. I like to say that these are living, breathing documents. They change over time. We will provide a full presentation on the items that are being requested to be approved. This item also includes a resolution to update the zoning code map by rezoning properties in Tasman East to be consistent with the current our community development planning manager. Leslie?
Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor and council members. In January 2024, the City Council adopted its first comprehensive zoning code update in over 50 years. Council adopted the first zoning code cleanup ordinance, and in June 2025, the second cleanup ordinance was to address clerical inconsistencies within the document or areas needing further clarification include policy actions, code consistency actions, and consistency with state law actions. Visions of the HP Historic Combining District and the updated zoning code. This will reestablish its place within the code. This was a district that was in the old code for redevelopment of a site. Differentiating institutional uses from assembly uses in the public quasi-public zoning district. Another policy action is to change the building height for public quasi-public zoning district by allowing additional building 100 feet and 12 stories. This change is being requested as typically institutional uses have much larger floor plates for their operation. Consistency actions include adding a definition for the term dwelling unit, revising the definition of the term demolition, making the general plan and zoning code definitions of floor area ratio consistent with each other. Clearance diagram to be consistent with the Public Works standard. So on my left, your left, okay, great, is our current diagram. To be consistent with state law, the proposed zoning code update would add a new section 17 that requires apartment owners to unbundle parking from rent. The standard will apply to all multifamily projects greater than 15 units financed with low-income housing tax credits, housing development that is financed with tax-exempt bonds. Staff is proposing to remove the requirement to post mailed public hearing notices on the city's website. This has not been the city's practice and is not part of the public and is also a searchable document on the website. As shown on the top right image, this is where we're currently posting our hearing notice. So the change we're requesting under section 18-14620, notice of hearing, number 4, is to remove another streamlining action consistent with many state housing laws and with the adoption of the citywide objective design standards. Staff has proposed CEQA review and community meetings will still be required. Staff is proposing this change as the city's objective standards remove discretion from the permit approval process, increase certainty, and the combination of objective standards and administrative approval process provides a powerful incentive for development projects to be consistent with the city's policy framework. District from TN, Transit Neighborhood. It's a holdover district from our previous zoning code to the new Transit Neighborhood Residential Zone R6. 2026, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to discuss the code changes and recommended that the City Council adopt the zoning code at such businesses. Specifically, they recommended to replace the word "and" with the word "or" in the list of items what a business is primarily engaged in. The Planning Commission's revised wording is included in the proposed ordinance online, which are relevant and accessible in a practice that currently takes place, as this would also fulfill the same function as posting the zoning map consistent with the general plan. For environmental clearance, the zoning code cleanup is an implementation action covered under the addendum to the 2010-2030. And then finally, staff's recommendation is for the City Council to adopt updates to the zoning code consistent with the general plan and state laws and apply the R6 Transit Neighborhood Residential District to properties.
Thank you. When I read through these, I was a little surprised when I saw under the policy changes that said requiring now, and you want to implement this because I can think of single-family homes where the garage is turned for new, or would this apply to everyone? Because I can think of existing that this would not be appropriate. And also, I was wondering, right below it, it says requiring automotive, because I can think of many of our service industry where that is, you can see it from El Camino. So I wanted to.
Thank you, Leslie. I had a similar concern about the perpendicular residential parking because for residential are you talking about just for single family? Because it only said residential. And then on slide 6, we're talking about visibility clearance diagram. And of course, these diagrams are way out of scale because it's 12 homes to see whether they're fences, how many fences are out of compliance. People always want to put a fence around their property to prevent dogs and, kids, all kinds of things. But would that be covered? Or I'd like you to really explain what the impacts are. Can somebody plant a shrub in that area that's more than 3 feet tall? That's probably going to happen frequently. But did you do a survey of how many properties would be, and most people think is their right to do that? And this may preclude fences. And then in terms of the slide 7 on the unbundled parking, it says, to be consistent with state law, the proposed zoning code update would also allow for the actual code from the document in our packet actually says, this is section 26. District, all parking is required to be provided unbundled from the rental of the unit. So is it allowed or required? That seems very unclear to me. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Being on acres of 10 or more, and perhaps this is because I've been following on the south side of my district with the Winchester development through San Jose. There's a ton of concerns about heights, buffering up against residential neighborhoods. So I'm wondering if within this 10 acres there is any regulation. I'm just curious about that 10-acre allotment. That seems to be a predicate of the height.
Thank you, Councilmember Park.
In play there, but I also have concerns about the visibility clearance, the question about what if they're fences? I mean, we just had something in my neighborhood where people were replacing wood fences. We can see right through the fences. I'd like to know a little bit about that. I also want to know, why are we removing the requirement to post public hearing notices? I mean, why have we not been posting public hearing notices on the website? If you're on the website, would you have to come to City Hall? Where would you have to go? I also know that you want to remove the requirement for a public hearing for architectural review permits because we've got objective standards, but at some point, I think that there should be some, if in fact the objective standards are working the way that we intend, those meetings I hope will be very short. And after a while, and I don't know what that would be, we would obviate the need for additional hearings. But to just do that in advance, I feel that there should be some transition period, the process. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question as far as you mentioned the height of the Sutter Hospital, possibly height limitations are.
There's your questions. Do you need more time? Would you like me to go to the public?
Anything? Okay, so let's start with the uncovered parking. It is just for single-family homes, and that would be intent of putting that into the code. As far as the service bay is not visible from the street, this is a design standard that we're proposing to put in the code. Currently, anything that has to be behind the rear or to the side. So it's the way they choose to site the building so that the building fronting the street has a nicer aesthetic. Let's see. That visibility clearance for fences is 3 feet. The height for in a front setback for a single-family home is currently 3 feet, so those do currently align. We do have a lot of homes in Santa Clara that aren't. And as far as the opacity of the fence, it could be wrought iron or it could be wood. We don't have any regulations as to if it needs to be see-through or not. And for new construction.
Understand your answers. So if somebody is building new construction and they want to put a fence all around their property,
yes,
it doesn't matter whether it's wrought iron or not. They just, if it's more than 3 feet,
it's not allowed.
And if they're replacing something that's existing, it has to be within. I see.
But yeah, currently, a single-family home typically has a front setback of 20 feet. Within that 20 feet, only a 3-foot fence is allowed. So if you're on a corner lot, correct,
Not a
within that
bollard
area.
or anything.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Unbundled parking, apologies, that's a mistake on the slide. It should say required, not allow. So it is a state law required. For the PQP and the height change, if we could go back to that slide. It was, it's too small, 4, I think? Yeah, there. So it is on sites that are 10 acres or more, so very large sites within Santa Clara. If you see under the proposed, the areas I've highlighted, right above that, if you're within a single R1 or R2 zoning district, so if you have a 10-acre property that's adjacent to that, the lower heights do apply. So 32 feet, and there is a certain distance for that in another section of the code. I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. But there is a lower height limit if you're adjacent to that single-family home. And I think Councilmember Gonzalez, you also had a question about the PQP height. And what is it now? So currently, it's 60 feet and 6 stories. And we'd be changing that just for institutional uses that are 10 acres or more to go up to 200 feet and 12 stories. And so it would be almost anywhere on the 10-acre site within the limitation of the 32 feet if you're adjacent to single family. Councilmember Park. So again, why we're removing the posting of the public hearing notices, this was added with the updated zoning code. This was not something that, that had been practiced before and not something we had initially been doing. We didn't realize that it was in the zoning code, so we have been doing it for since January of this year, and we've been posting it in that area I showed on the website, on the event calendar. And the reason we're asking to remove it is it's duplicative work. The hearing agenda is already in the same location, so you can click on the hearing agenda, see all the items. You can click on the notice and see all the items. They're the same thing. So that's why we're asking to remove it. And then I've heard your comment on the objective design standards in a transition period. And I think I got all of them. Make sure I didn't miss any. I do have an additional piece of information. So there are 10 parcels that are in the city of Santa Clara that are designated PQP where this height limit would apply. So an additional piece of information for you. Okay. I think we did.
I have two more lights up, Councilmember Park and Jane.
Yeah, so I hear what you say about the visibility, but I hear what you say about the visibility, but I think, again, the issue that I'm thinking of, if people looked at the wrought iron fences, if they looked at the fences, the actual visibility was pretty clear. I mean, in some places, the question was spacing and things like that, but the residents who applied were very willing to change things. One of the reasons they needed to be higher was they had people breaking into their property. And I think that for security, 3-foot height does not give them the security that they wanted or needed. And that's why they asked for a higher fence. Again, nobody came out. I don't think anyone actually went out to take a look at the visibility. And if we're not looking at how a wooden fence differs from even a picket fence or even a wrought iron fence, I don't think we're doing the residents a favor when they've got concerns about security and access. Also, I understand what you mean by things are duplicative if you post them here and post them there, but I think that if it's a web, if it's a digital resource, they should be in one place that's easy to get to, regardless if you shouldn't have to go into an agenda to get information. Maybe the agenda should refer to the place, to a common place where anyone could go that's easily found, and that would be on a website. Again, if we weren't doing it and we just want to justify why we weren't doing it, or to have to justify, I don't necessarily think that's the right process. I think we should be looking at, well, people didn't use it, nobody
We're
complained.
questions only, Councilmember Park.
But
so
I would
put a
like,
question on the end of this.
yes, can you look at putting items in consistent places so that anyone can take a look at them, whether they go to an agenda or not, so that people can find them? And if you want to remove the duplicative nature of the posting, have the agendas referred to that common location. Thank you.
Councilmember Jane?
Yeah, I still wanted to drill down into the fences. Is this driven by state law or by Vision Zero mandates, or where did this rule come from? And it seems to me that wrought iron fences would be adequate as long as they had a certain spacing that allowed a certain opacity, transparency to them. And then I wanted to go to the definition of the secured bike. I think we added a definition of secured bike parking, which protects the entire bike and its components from theft, vandalism, or inclement weather, and includes bike lockers, rooms with key access. So if somebody were to put a bike locker outside in the parking lot in the rain, would that be considered to be okay? I mean, I like bike rooms with cameras, but I'm just trying to understand how we came up with this definition.
I'll need a minute
That's
to
it for
answer
the
that question.
second round of questions.
If you want to see if there's any public comments, I need a minute to answer.
Oh,
that
sure.
parking question.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open this up for the public. Do we have anyone here in the audience that would like to make a public comment? If so, please come forward. All right, none here in the audience. Mark, you're online. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would ask the council to oppose the, or not include the approval of a 200-foot height limit on 10-acre parcels. Seems like to me there's a limited number of these projects, and if that's required for a particular project, the council certainly has the authority to review those projects individually and grant such approval. It would appear to me that this is an attempt to put into our code a backroom deal for development by significant medical facilities or other industrial facilities that don't want and not grant approval in the zoning code. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? I don't see any. City Clerk, do you? All right, so I'm going to be looking for a motion to close the public hearing. Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Close public hearing.
Second.
Right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Gonzalez, second by Councilmember Hardy to close the public hearing. Assistant City Clerk, when you're ready.
Councilmember Shahal.
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Councilmember Jane.
Yes.
Councilmember Cox.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore.
Yes, and that passes unanimously. I'm also wondering if we can add Mark Kelsey's comment, question or comment into answers about the 10-acre parcels and the relevance of that to this zoning code. Does this give automatic approval to projects, or do the projects still have to come back to the council for approval? Just to clarify what the process is for that when you're ready.
Would you mind taking a recess?
Okay, how about a five? Oh, are they ready? Oh,
I have an answer for you on the bike parking. So for the bike parking definition of the secured bike parking, it's meant to protect the bike itself from theft, so not necessarily the person from rain, so to protect the bike. Or
If I
the
have a
bike.
bike, if I have a bike locker in the parking lot
Yeah.
that's exposed to the rain, it's going to rust. And so I would like it to be protected from rain. But here you're saying includes bike lockers. So if if a developer wanted to put a bike locker in the parking lot, not covered, the bike lockers, they're porous. They're metal, porous metal. They have holes drilled in them. So the chain is going to rust. The whole bike's going to rust.
Okay, so ensuring that it's a covered bike locker, not.
Protected from the rain. That's what it says, yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike Loop, Public Works. If I could get the presentation back on the screen, and then I'm here to try to address the question related to the visibility. That's slide 6. In coordination with community development, I believe these two images are actually incorrectly in the incorrect location. So the one on the right is the current zoning code. So what you see there is a triangle that appears to encroach a lot more into the private property. Right, but a couple things. That one's not to scale, so it's a little bit misleading. The one on the left is actually the proposed. So what that does is it really focuses more on the drive approach as you're heading towards the bottom of the drawing, towards the top. It lengthens it a little bit, 125 feet, and then it doesn't focus on the other side. So the triangle is really more for visibility as the driver of the vehicle is driving from the bottom of the graphic to the north. And actually, there's if you can see my cursor, what I'm trying to show on the screen here with the pointer. So this, once again, this should have said proposed, and then this should have said current, because if you pull up the current zoning code, this is what it looks like today. This is the current zoning code.
You're actually
It's getting
reducing.
amended. We're actually adjusting the visibility to be more in alignment with what we actually do when projects.
I'm saying you're actually reducing the visibility because you're allowing them to put the fence closer to the corner.
Correct, and we believe that this is a very strict interpretation from years ago, from what I understand. This is really
So
what
you're
our staff does when they review projects. So.
That's what I wanted to get to. You're reducing the visibility.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Manager, do you want to respond to our public member's question?
Yes, there was a question from Mark Kelsey around the additional height for certain facilities over 10 acres. That is proposed to be a conditional use, so there will still be discretion allowed. It is not automatic, and so it's meant to not require a zoning code amendment should it want to be done, but it would be allowed with a conditional use permit.
All right, thank you. Did we get all those questions? Okay. Karen, Councilmember Hardy, sorry.
Thank you. When I asked about the uncovered parking on residential parcels, it was not clear if that was only for new development. You didn't say specifically, and I thought about it as Councilmember Jane made the point, and I was thinking about slanted parking, even in residential, especially if it is a one-way street, that is helpful instead of it being perpendicular. So I'm trying to, I understand what you're trying to not allow, but by just saying required to be perpendicular, I'm wondering if that is not allowing some other possibilities? Thank you.
Does that require an answer? I think so.
I would like that answered as far as if it was only for new residential, and does that prohibit us from having slanted parking, especially on a one-way street?
So yes, it is just for new development, and yes, you could have angled parking, just not parallel parking. So you could add that clarification if we don't have it in the section.
Because you put require perpendicular.
Yeah.
Just, would it be better to say prohibit parallel? Thank you.
Councilmember Park.
Yes, I mean, you just made the note that there are only 10 parcels that need the PQP, that meet the PQP. And just for the public, like edification of the public, can you name those parcels?
I don't know that I can. So Kaiser is one of them. Santa Clara University is one of them. There are, what else? The proposed Sutter Health site up on Mission College, adjacent to the AMC movie theater there, and Mission College itself is, actually, that's not yet. They're requesting a change, sorry. There's a couple of school sites that are 10 acres. Those are the ones I know off the top of my head.
All right, thank you. All right, council. What do you want to do? Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a
I'd like
second.
to make an amendment.
Well, let me just finish a sentence. A motion and a second for staff recommendation. Councilmember Jane.
That we make the change that Councilmember Hardy had requested about the parallel parking, and that we make the change that the bikes will be protected from rain.
Is that accepted, Vice Mayor Gonzalez? Councilmember, Councilmember Cox. Is that accepted by you?
Do we have a cost analysis of what that change would be for covered bike parking?
Madam Mayor, if I might, I was provided a draft of the proposed change in the provision regarding the bike parking, and I believe the language covers, Member Jane, what you're talking about. What I'm looking at here that was provided to me is that the language that's added says secured bicycle parking that protects the entire bicycle and its components from theft, vandalism, or inclement weather. So I don't think you need a change. I think it's already in there. Yeah, you might need to keep reading for that part.
Just Councilmember Hardy's request. Okay with Councilmember?
Accepted, yeah.
Okay. Motion second. Okay, Councilmember Park on the motion?
Yeah, well, again, I think that the public member was very explicit about the concerns, and I believe that with the list of parcels, those concerns have borne out, and I would like to request that we strike the 200-foot change.
I don't see a reason for that, but Vice Mayor Gonzalez, do you want to strike that? All right, so there you go. Okay, Assistant City Clerk, when you're ready.
To the maker of the motion, it's staff recommendation with the amendment regarding parking changes. Could you repeat that again, please?
Councilmember Hardy, would you like to repeat your amendment to that?
Instead of it, let me go back. Instead of it saying that all required uncovered parking in residential parcels be perpendicular to the street, it should say parallel parking in residential areas, parallel parking to the street is prohibited.
Thank you.
Do you understand that, City Manager, City Attorney, to be added in there?
Yes.
Okay.
So it allows perpendicular or angled parking.
or angled parking. I can shorthand that some way into this motion, as long as the staff understands that.
Councilmember Shahal?
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
No.
Councilmember Jane?
Yes.
Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Mayor Gilmore?
Yes, and that passes 6-1. Thank you very much, staff. Thanks for the work on this. All right, our next item, 3 030s in a row. All right, staff update and solicitation of council input or direction on a city council request. Council Policy 030 to revise Chapter 17.15 of the City Code, property developments related to required street improvements deferred from June 23rd. Must have been a long meeting on June 23rd. We have a lot of things deferred from that meeting. City Manager, do you take this? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As you noted, this is a 030 request from Councilmember Jahal. Just as a reminder, the 030 request is a multi-step process. So for this meeting, we are bringing you back additional information and soliciting feedback on should we agendize a subsequent change to the municipal code, chapter 17.15. You will hear in the presentation information on the requirement, estimated cost of the improvements that have been made by property owners, the number of projects or times that this requirement has been applied over several years, as well as benchmarking from several cities that have similar requirements, albeit slightly different. With that, I'll turn this presentation over to Mike Liu, our Assistant Director and City Engineer in the Public Works Department.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. Once again, Mike Liu, Assistant Director, City Engineer, Department of Public Works. It's my pleasure to present on this item. I'll have a short presentation to run through. As the City Manager just alluded to, this is related to a 030 related to Chapter 1715 of the City Code. Let me start running through these slides. So just as a bit of background, November 18th last year, Councilmember Chahal submitted a 030 to revise Title 17, Chapter 17.15, Table 3, and this is related to requirements for public improvements. The motion was approved to agendize it, and then we were actually scheduled to be here. We're scheduled to be here on the 23rd. It was on the agenda, but the item was deferred to August as that meeting was going very long that night. So we're back here today to talk about the topic. So with this slide, this is really just a summary of what Chapter 1715 of the City Code relates to relative to the topic today. So it's really more about property developments. There's definitions in there related to policies, requirements, and procedures. There's a section related to on-site dedication and easements and rights-of-way, kind of a lot of the work we do here in Public Works, and it really gives the city the ability to require street improvements as development comes in. In specific, when you focus on 1715-110B, there's a statement here related to the developer shall grant the city without cost easements and rights-of-way for streets improvements necessary to serve the property and install the improvements in accordance with Table 3. So the next slide is going to show you Table 3. So it's a bit of a journey here to get to the information. So Table 3 is really a bit more detailed. It looks at dedication and street improvements could be required for final maps, parcel maps, and zoning. So that's typically new development. And then the next two categories are really more like existing buildings, existing development. So for residential, it's any single private improvement or any series of private improvements made within a 3-year period involving 800 or more square feet of any new construction, addition, or reconstruction. Then for non-residential, it's a very similar requirement, but it's focused on dollar. So that's really more of a $200,000 or more within a 3-year period. So as mentioned previously, with this chapter, we apply in basically two situations. You have planning entitlements and building permits. So planning entitlement and building permit is when, development comes in, they go through planning, they come to the council or some other body, you get approval, and then once they get that entitlement approval, then they go to the building department for approval, and then that's where we are involved in the review of those plans. The second category are building permits only. So this is really more your typical single-family residential addition. There's no need for any substantial planning review or a planning entitlement update, and it's really, they go straight to the building counter. So this report focuses on building permits only, and this is the most typical situation that we that we've heard some complaints about over the years. So with this slide, I wanted to walk through the process. So building applications received on the top left. Then we do the table 3 threshold review. So we'll just look at the application, see if it's over 800 square feet. We check the information in terms of whether that's been over, whether it's been over 800 square feet over a 3-year period. At that point, we will determine the required improvements. And I do want to pause here for a second, because what we do focus on is ADA-related improvements. And I have a slide here that shows what we're talking about, but it's really not just, we're not trying to do pavement, it's not street lighting, it's just really some ADA improvements. So once we determine those required improvements, then there's typically a condition of approval and obviously an applicant notice. So we tell the applicant this is what we believe is required, and ultimately they hopefully would sign the conditional release letter. What that is it allows the building permit to be issued with basically a promise from the applicant to come back and pull that permit to do that work. And that's kind of what you see in the rest of the boxes there. So here's a slide that shows 3 types, and really the intent there is to build if I can use this pointer again, an ADA-related surface that allows somebody in a wheelchair to have a flatter surface here. This does typically require reconstruction of the actual driveway approach as well, and then occasionally there could be dedication of some rights-of-way to really fit that all in. There are occasions where there's some sidewalk improvements as well, as you can see in the second picture in the middle. And last but not least is the curb ramp improvement, which we're all very familiar with. If a corner lot comes in, we would ask them to upgrade that ramp. It appears this is frozen, or maybe it's just me. Oops. I believe here. Let me just double check. We didn't miss a slide. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, next slide. So this slide covers information in terms of volume. So not a ton of volume, but there are applications that come in that actually hit those thresholds, and you can see that we're typically within the 20 and some sidewalk. The cost can vary depending upon the extent of the work. We get information from the applicants when they submit their plans, and the cost can be between $5,000 to $19,000 per improvement. And we do recognize that that's a cost that property owners often are leery of expending. We did do some peer city benchmarking, right? Santa Clara is we're our own city, but we're part of a county and basically part of the area. So we went to Milpitas, Mountain View, San Jose, and Sunnyvale, and then asked them very similar, the question, do you have a similar codified square footage trigger for private improvement, for public improvements for these types of projects? And ultimately, the summary here is that most cities don't, right? So Milpitas doesn't have any square footage trigger, San Jose doesn't, Sunnyvale doesn't, Mountain View does have a trigger, but they tend to, and in talking with them just recently, they do focus on the sewer lateral more than anything else. So that's just a bit of information for you in terms of what other cities are doing. And then that last couple slides is if the council wants to give us direction in terms of amending this section. We did want to point out a few things. So our current ADA improvements such as sidewalks and of course the driveway approach, as I mentioned. A lot of these improvements are originally developer built, so they weren't, and the city has opted to maintain the sidewalks over time. So I think that's important to note. And then if the requirement is removed, the city will bear the responsibility to upgrade facilities in the future, depending upon budget, scope, and timing. But in terms of amending 1715, obviously, what we wanted to highlight here is that can be amended to modify, to eliminate the existing code requirement. We did want to mention that typically amendments are not retroactive. I know there's maybe been some discussion about can we go back in time. So typically they're forward looking, but they could be applied retroactively. But you'd have to take into consideration applicants that already built improvements, and those are already for everybody ultimately. And then the ordinance will require amendments of the code, including potential coordination with some of our committees if we elect to do the changes. So really, that just leads to the staff recommendation is we're hoping the council can discuss and provide direction related to this 030 request, and I'm here and available for question and answer when the time's right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Councilmember Hardy?
Thank you. I read this very carefully, and I still had a lot of thoughts. It talked about the other cities not having a trigger for this requirement, but also it wasn't clear to me, are they requiring this as well? That was not completely clear. Because we're talking about ADA, and the street you showed, the driveway, where it gave more, I mean, I can't think of anywhere in any of my close neighborhoods where someone has been required to put more. I mean, it dips down when you get to someone's driveway, the sidewalk. And so I'm wondering, you mentioned this was mostly for new projects, so I want to understand that. Are we requiring when someone is, it looked to me like what we were doing was requiring this when someone redid their driveway or were redoing their house in some way. Are we requiring them to put the ADA ramp if they're on a corner? That was it. I was looking for that because I know we used to use the community block grants for that and then got told we couldn't do that. And that slowed down the process of putting in those curb cuts on the corners, and we've been doing them as many as we can per year and prioritizing, and I know that. So I want to understand, is this just for someone improving their property, and does that trigger that? And the next question I had is, I read very carefully, if we chose to take this off, then you would have to make a retroactive, you would have to give a deadline, and if you wanted to go backwards with it, you would have to give a date on it. And that worried me too, because that becomes a deadline for someone, oh, I finished mine and it gets paid for and somebody else's doesn't. So that worried me as well. So I was not real clear if we took this off, even if we made it going forward, then would the city have to pay for every one of those improvements, and what would trigger that? And I think we'd be the only city doing that, but I'm not clear, and what would be the approximate cost? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jane.
Yeah, looking at slide 9, it really wasn't clear to me. Of course, we want to support, all of the ADA requirements, but it doesn't seem like the other cities are doing as much as what we're proposing. And I'd like to understand for San Jose, what do they mean by the scope creates a clear nexus? Like if the city were to be redoing the sidewalk anyway because of trees, would the city just do the driveway automatically? That seems to me we would just add a little bit to the scope to get this done when we're out there doing the other work. Again, I think the reason why Councilmember Chahal brought this up was because there's so few of these that if one house on a whole block does it and the others don't, it still presents an issue for somebody who has a wheelchair. So I understand we're trying to get there, and doing it one by one makes sense, but this is a pretty big financial hazard with not as much benefit as maybe worth the expense. So I'd like to understand how other cities are getting there. It's, for Mountain View, you say improvements not required unless proposed by the applicant, right? That's just a voluntary compliance. And then that first picture that you showed where people are moving the sidewalk onto their property into the driveway, and you talked about, would they then dedicate that land to the city and it would be forever an easement by the city, even if the property changed hands? It seems like the owner should be compensated for that easement. I don't know how this all works, but I think it needs a lot more fleshing out before it comes to council.
Councilmember Park.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've worked with Councilmember Chahal on several of the projects that were problematic. They were in my district. And my complaint was with the process, which is people had made plans, they had got them approved with the city to make improvements to their houses, and then during final inspection, they were told about this ADA requirement to also update their sidewalks. And again, they had put all the work and money into their upgrade, and then they were essentially hit with an unexpected $10,000, $12,000 fee for work that had nothing to do with the improvements or the work that they were doing to their houses. That was the first issue. The second thing I noticed is we did the ADA curb ramp improvements also in my district and other places. I think that was a precursor to the asphalt, the road resurfacing that was going in later, but it seems like in some cases, residents can wait for the city to get the job done, and that's random because I looked around, not every ramp had a ADA compliant, not every curb had an ADA compliant ramp put in. Certainly driveways that I thought were a little too steep, you can see that usually there's a smooth grade that goes from the street to the driveway, but there was a noticeable change in the angle that none of those were actually done. It would have seemed to me that while we were doing that work, we would have looked at all the driveways that were non-compliant and worked with the residents to do this. But again, if we had done that, it would have blocked the driveways, and in a lot of cases, the asphalt work wasn't clearly noticed to people, and people were, trapped in their neighborhoods and things like that. But again, the process is we are putting a $10,000, $12,000 cost. I've never seen anything less than $12,000 actually in my experience onto residents unexpectedly. It didn't come up in the very beginning. They weren't told at the beginning of their project that, well, because of this, the work that you're doing, it triggers this requirement. You're going to have to do this later. It happened at final inspection. Also, the cost is a non-trivial cost. I mean, in some cases, that $12,000 was a large percentage of the total amount of work that they put into their houses. And if the city is better equipped at contracting out this work and getting this work done, I mean, that reminds me of the sewer lateral question that came up in 2021, which is this is something most residents don't know about. They don't think about this. And then to be hit with this requirement for work that they have no experience in, that they didn't contract in because the people that they have doing the work that they need are not even this area, to have to get to another contractor. It just seems to me that would be better for the city to get this done so that the city gets the work done in a city-approved way, and then the costs can be shared by the residents, the people making the improvements, maybe with other fees. But the city can use their relationships with contractors and their work that needs to be done all throughout the city to get this done much more cheaply. But I understand the reason for this. I would like to see this be removed as a requirement. I mean, if it's work that's in the area and it makes sense through the course of the work, but people are doing home additions and then being asked to do street improvement, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it hits them unexpectedly, and we're not telling residents that. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Kelly, Councilmember Cox.
Thank you. My question really is about applicability. It does say that 1715 is applied in 2 situations, and the report is specifically to building permits only. So I'm wondering if a change was made, I'm assuming that it would be applicable to building permits, planning entitlement, non-residential as well. And so I know that we're focusing on like a cost analysis of just what's happening with residents, but I'm assuming that this would have larger impacts than that. If that's the case, and I know this was a 030, is this something that, as we've discussed, should this perhaps be looked at by Planning Commission first? Ideas drafted up and then brought back to council?
Mike, I have a question, just a clarification, because it's the 800 square feet that triggers this, this requirement, and I think people that remodeled their homes, is this an expansion of an existing home, 800 square foot, or is it remodeling within an 800 square foot already existing footprint of a home? Like what triggers the 800 square feet? Anybody that's remodeled their home knows that when they come to the city, and if they're doing a major remodel, whatever's considered major, I don't know exactly what that is, that you have to bring certain components of your property up to today's code. I mean, anybody who is remodeling would get that information, I mean, right from the start. It's not something that is sprung on you at the last minute, as was described. That doesn't happen. So can you please explain what a homeowner would encounter when they are applying for a major remodel? But what does the 800 square foot signify? That's my question. And I think those are the questions. So thank you. This isn't a public hearing, so.
Great, thank you.
I can go to the public if you want some extra time.
I can try to address the questions.
Oh, yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
So if I can start with some of the first questions in order. If I can go to the slide related to triggers in other cities. These are questions from Councilmember Hardy. Yes, correct. There are no triggers in other cities. And my understanding is they do not require the same type of improvements that we require. So they don't have the trigger, and then at the same time, they don't ask for it ultimately. In terms of what type of project we're talking about here, so ultimately, this code section applies to new construction as well as modifications, right, to existing structures. And if we go back to this earlier slide, you can see that planning entitlement, building permits, and building permits only. Really, the intent here was to show you that with development that comes into our city, we do require them to often do street improvements, right? So new retail at the corner, we'll often say, please rebuild the sidewalk. Occasionally we'll make it wider, put in trees, things like that. That's not uncommon. Most cities do that. What we're talking about here are really residential building permit applications that come in for an addition, and improvements internal to the structure, as the mayor was alluding to, that those projects would be required to, do some level of street improvements. And the practice of our department has been to focus on ADA, right? So ultimately, it does apply to new projects, but also existing buildings with changes to those buildings. There was a question related to the ramp at the corner in this picture, which I'll go to the picture. So ultimately, I think I'm messing this up here. Yeah, somehow I'm back at the beginning. There we go, okay. Oh, if you can go to the slide with the pictures on it, I appreciate that, thank you. So the curb ramp improvement at that corner, that was an example where that was required because the property is at that corner. So really, at the end of the day, when we're looking at a project, a residential project, we're looking at the frontage. So the frontage just happens to be a corner. There was no ramp there, or there was a ramp that was non-compliant. We asked them to fix that ramp, similar to how we were asking others to deal with sidewalk in front of their property, as well as the driveway approach, as mentioned earlier. There were comments related to retroactive. Yeah, so we did have a slide in terms of whether it could be retroactive, and I think the understanding is it can be, but there is some caution there in terms of how do you make sure that the deadlines are correct, and what do you do if one person already built it and then their neighbor on the block hasn't built it yet, and then now they no longer have to do it, another person. So it's not uncommon for when rules change that it's just forward-facing completely. But if there is some desire for retroactivity, we would like to know, hopefully get some information in terms of if the council's interested in that at all. And then in terms of the cost for the city, it'll vary. We have our 88 plan. There's a ton of pretty significant amount of improvements in there. We do have information in terms of the cost of each of these types of projects. If the city were to take them on, there would be additional city funds that would need to be reserved for that purpose. I do want to point out that for driveways, and this kind of gets to some of the other questions in terms of the paving projects we have and things like that, that we don't do the driveway approaches as a city, right? When we hear issues related to uplifted sidewalk and maintenance, then they'll typically replace those flags of concrete and remove and replace. They'll try to make some level of improvement, but it's not very. Since I've been here, we have not focused on driveways in terms of making the driveway approach ADA compliant. Let me move on to a couple next questions here. This was the comparison slide. So Councilmember Jane had questions related to San Jose's note here related to Nexus. There was a comment related to having, if the city's going to be doing the trees and the sidewalk, can they do the driveway as well? And then the dedication requirement. So yeah, San Jose's requirement here, or sorry, lack of requirement, and the note there is that they don't believe that requiring a driveway and a sidewalk, there's clear nexus or justification for the city to basically force somebody to do that.
Since San Jose, aren't they responsible for the sidewalk, the residents? Unlike
San Jose, they're fully responsible for the sidewalk.
For the sidewalk, unlike us, we have our
It's
city.
a very different animal.
Yeah.
So that's San Jose. I mean, they wanted to mention that to us, so we put that in the notes here. In terms of the driveways being done by the city, as mentioned earlier, we don't typically do the driveways when we're replacing a tree or dealing with broken sidewalk. It's really just focus on that one thing. We're not trying to upgrade everything at the same time. And then in terms of the detail from this, or the picture here. So yes, in this example, on the one on the left, the driveway approach and the sidewalk improvement, the sidewalk does go a little bit further into the site to some degree. I think the question would ultimately remain in terms of whether or not, because occasionally the right-of-way can be further back a little bit. It's not necessarily right here. So we may have rights to have this area here, or if not, we'll require a dedication. So similar to other projects where you're widening a street, we'll require some dedication. That's required in order to basically have this facility function properly. And then there is no compensation for the property owner. And so Councilmember Park had questions related to, or comments related to the timing of the requirement and 88 project, 88, when the applicant's notified, they should be notified prior to the building permit being issued, prior to any start of construction, that the the improvements are required. We have them sign a conditional letter, right? Because absent that letter, they'll disappear and I can't call them and say, hey, you told me you were gonna do this, and they won't remember that. So we have them sign a conditional letter saying they promise to come back, but prior to final, they will have finished the improvement. But it's not uncommon for a property owner to, I wouldn't say forget about it, but defer the discussion, thinking maybe they can get out of it, or they just, folks, people doing residential building permits, they're not necessarily contractors or developers by trade, right? They're just homeowners trying to do their work. So my understanding is that it's not uncommon for somebody to forget or not understand that's what that all meant, And then when they start getting into it, then they start realizing, oh, I'm starting to get quotes. It's a little bit more than I expected. And then that's when we start getting the complaints. But yeah, in terms of city projects, so when the city does paving, right, we do annual paving project, there are ramps that are upgraded during those projects. It does depend on the level of surface treatment that we're doing. So certain things trigger the ramp improvements, certain things don't. So when you're typically doing a slurry seal, there's no ADA improvements associated with that. If we did it, we would be spending less on pavement, more on that. Ultimately, it is required for when we're doing the more, basically kind of the 2-inch overlay, where you're grinding out the surface, taking it down a couple inches. Those situations, we are required to do those ramps at those times. And in terms of the driveways, we don't address the driveways. The driveway itself is not an ADA facility. In terms of folks using that to get onto the property, the ramp at the corner is, the ramp at the other corner is, the driveway is really just for the vehicles. It's not intended as an ADA facility in and of itself. I believe Councilmember Cox had questions related to applicability. Once again, Chapter 1715, 110 applies to development in Santa Clara, right? What I did here was just kind of break it down for the two types of projects you typically will see. Ones where there's a developer, entitlement, community process, and one where there's typically just a residential, someone going straight in for a tenant improvement or an addition. So, the complaints we've received, some of the comments that we've seen over time are really focused more on the smaller projects, the residential improvements, and that's kind of where the focus was that for today. If there's direction to address it all, we can certainly do that. The current practice, though, is that when a developer comes in and redevelops, we do take a look at the sidewalk, we do take a look at the pavement, and we'll have them oftentimes redo a lot of that in order to really bring everything up to current standards. In terms of Planning Commission, we weren't thinking of bringing this to Planning Commission, but we haven't finalized that discussion. It depends on the extent of what the changes are today. If there's a desire for something like that, we could certainly accommodate that. And then the mayor had a question related to what 800 actually means. So I can actually, it's in the attachments, but I can go ahead and read it. There's something in the code, the table, it's like the fine print. It says residential, any single private improvement less than 800 square feet, private improvement, less than 800 square feet, or of any new construction, addition, or reconstruction, or any series of improvements made within a 3-year period. And then there's an asterisk here that reconstruction is any work involving the removal of at least 50% of exterior walls. Interior remodeling is not reconstruction.
Thank you.
I believe that hopefully answers most of the questions. Thank you.
Oh, I did ask the question in the process, and I think you mentioned it, that the property owner is informed during the process about the requirement to bring, certain elements of their development or the improvements up to current code.
Yeah. So, for example, if somebody complained to us and said, "Hey, someone's making me do this, they never told me," and then we find out that no one told them, we're not making them do that.
Okay.
That would not be right.
But they're told in the beginning.
Right. I think the likelihood is they didn't understand the breadth of it, and as a result, now they have an issue. It's not uncommon for projects at the end, you spend all your money, you're in the middle of construction, there's always change orders and more you want to do with your house, and then at the end, not realizing this is what this would take, you find that it becomes pretty daunting.
And homeowners, I just wanted to say this as well, because it happened to me as well, but homeowners that are remodeling or doing major remodeling, you end up doing improvements, bringing things up to code that had actually nothing to do with your remodeling, but you still have to bring everything up to code. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's part of, you're informed ahead of time, so.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, did I go to the public already? Did I? All right, I'm going to go to the public now. Thank you. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this issue? Do we have anyone online? Councilmember Chahal, you brought this up. Hello.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Michael, for presenting this thing. Yeah, the reason I brought this thing was because it puts extra economical burden on a resident to fix the property or the public street, which is responsibility of the city, basically. So if you look at the other cities, because I was talking to this thing with city manager and I said no other cities, and that's what the residents were complaining, that no other city mandates this thing, whereas our city does. So we looked at the different cities. None of the other cities, Milpitas, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, or San Jose mandate this thing for ADA improvements or the current city standards. Ours is the only city which does that. And what's happening is when some of the residents had signed this thing, they didn't understand it properly at the time of getting their permit, because they have to sign this thing. Oh, you have to sign for this encroachment permit. Okay, sign it off, and then, but they come to know later on that this encroachment permit was for improving their ADA related streets. And to the point, Mayor, your point, you had a question like they have to bring the property to the current code. Yes, I agree. If they are doing major improvements, it should be limited to their property. But here we are asking them to bring the city streets, public streets. And other issue on this one is when we have this encroachment permit and when the residents go for asking somebody for getting this thing done as per the ADA standard and as an encroachment permit on a public lane, most of the contractors don't have the liability insurance for doing work in the public right of way, basically. And that's the reason, like, they are charging, like, if the work is only $5,000, this contractor, you find right of those. And these are the improvements which should be falling on city bucket, basically, because that's, if you look at the answers to my question, we have a liability of total liability around $745 million to improve the ADA for whole city. And out of that, curb ramps itself is $106 million, and pedestrian routes, which is, I'm talking about full street improvement on Bray Street, and I think Bray and Cunningham. And when they did that, they improved the whole street, including the driveway, everything. But here we are asking a resident on a 30 houses street, one resident, we are asking, hey, you improve it. Rest of the 29, we don't care about it. It doesn't help. I know it will help a little bit, but we are putting an additional burden on one resident when we have only 20 or so, 22 in 21, 27 in 22, 25 in 23, 19 in 24, 18 in 25, and 7 till date in 2026. So basically, we are putting a burden on these 20 houses, 20 residents, to improve their lot, whereas we don't care about anybody else on the street. So this thing is not, according to me, is ADA compliant. Then it makes sense that, okay, whole street should be done, and that's how the city is doing it. Although city is doing it in parcels, like depending upon what street they plan to do in a particular year, what curb ramps they plan to do in a particular year, not the resident. So that's why I'm asking that we should not have this clause for our residents who are already adding ADU is because of the financial aspect of it. Otherwise, they can build ADUs, but they don't have a money to build it. And if we have ADU and little bit more improvement, which goes to 800 square feet, they'll have another burden of improving, basically expense of around $20,000. So I want this chapter 17 to be eliminated. And as regards the retroactive, I don't know how many of these in 24 of these improvements, basically. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. Councilmember Park?
Yes, and I understand what Councilmember Chahal is saying, and I'm looking at a thread from 16 September 2025, and it talks about the signed conditional release acknowledging frontage obligations, but it's along the lines of reconstruction may be required to bring driveway up to current standards, including ADA, and without detailing the work required. And there was no expectation, especially with the words may be required, that the work that they were doing, not dealing with street at all, would have these requirements. And again, it wasn't until final inspection that the details of the work that would be required were brought up. But when you look at the conditional release that was signed by the residents making the modifications, I mean, I could not discern that this would be a requirement. I would have to go deep. I would have to go into the code. I would have to have that brought to me. And again, if the contractors that they're hiring aren't doing street work or don't have the coverage, the insurance, the liability coverage to do street work, there was no expectation that this would be a requirement. And the details were not made known until the final inspection. And at that point, it's too late. They can't undo the work that they just did to save on the money. So my complaints are, again, I'm looking at the email, I'm looking at the letters. We may tell them that we tell them the work that's required, but holy cow, in this case, it was not clear. In this case, it was not explicit that the $15,000 expense that they'd have to put in was something that they signed up to do.
Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. It was brought up, and I had made a note also about an ADU, thinking of someone putting an accessory dwelling unit on the back of their property and then being required to change out the driveway approach. If I'm understanding correctly, this is what we are requesting and requiring. Also, if someone's on a corner, is that requiring them to put in the ADA approach on the corner of the sidewalk, if there isn't one already? And as I mentioned, the city is working on those and doing those in our approach and doing as many as we can each year, but we don't have all of them done. So this is what's not clear before we made any kind of a decision. I would need to be really, because I read the report very carefully, but it was almost as if you jumped into the middle of it with us not completely understanding all the background of what was being required. Because when I looked at the comparisons for Milpitas, Mountain View, San Jose, and Sunnyvale, it wasn't clear what we were requiring that they weren't. It just said no square footage trigger, and I wasn't clear, did that mean if you weren't doing the driveway, are we now requiring the driveway approach? Or in some cases, you mentioned redoing the entire sidewalk. Now, I do know that many of our new construction have destroyed the sidewalk, or it's quite badly done. And that's part of the requirement. I'll give an example there on El Camino and Calabasas, where Toll Brothers is finishing that. They have fixed the sidewalk and fixed the curbs. And I'm assuming that's what you were thinking of, but it sounds like it's coming up on residents who are doing something completely different. I understand if you're going to be redoing your driveway on the approach, that it has to be up to the new code. That is clear, but I'm wondering why we're tying that to improvements elsewhere on the property. That's my question.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A few comments really to summarize what we've heard, but also I think drive us to a potential direction. Just want to remind Council that you have this item because of a 030 request from Councilmember Chahal. I do know that there was a resident that had a similar condition that he spoke to me about. Councilmember Park has mentioned other residents that have brought this to him. I know of 2, maybe 3. As you've seen with the data, there over the last several years, more than 100 of these have taken place. So just want to put a pin in that. I know we're hearing from some residents. How many residents have issues? Candidly, I don't know. Also want to note, at its core, we're talking about a policy decision. The city of Santa Clara has decided that the city is responsible for public sidewalks adjacent to private property. Not all cities make that decision. Some cities, frankly, say the property owner is responsible for the public sidewalk in front of their property, and they place the cost of maintaining and replacing that on the property owner. We don't do that. And that's a totally legitimate policy decision that we have made. However, another policy decision that we have made, indicative by 1715, says that, okay, but when residents improve their property, we are going to require you to make an improvement to the sidewalk for the ADA benefit. Certainly, I think from the council discussion, there's a recognition that there's a benefit, but there's also a burden because it comes with a cost. And so part of the policy conversation that is uplifted by this discussion is, does the city council desire to continue to require property owners to make improvements to their sidewalk when they are doing other work on their property? And if so, what is the trigger? Right now, we know our trigger is 800 square feet. Does the council wish to have staff look at potentially increasing that trigger, or potentially having the trigger be where the improvement is adjacent to the sidewalk? Maybe they're improving their driveway, or they're doing other improvements in the front of their house to be the trigger. And I believe I heard examples of where a property owner would be doing something in the rear of the property or fully interior to their property, and then they have to improve the sidewalk. Also, we've talked about that some residents have, or permittees have said, well, I really didn't know about this, even though they signed a notice. Certainly, we can go back and look at that notice and, through our process, ensure that there is clear communication of, here's the improvement that you may be responsible for at the time the permit is issued. We don't have the information on exactly what that property looks like, why there's a conditional language in there. It may be required, and we don't know that until the inspector goes out. But certainly, even if we improve the notification, given the cost of some of these items, we may still hear, I found out at the last minute the cost is too great. Can I have a waiver or some leniency? But I think at its core, it's a policy decision from the city council of, do you still want to maintain a requirement like this? And if you do, what is the trigger? And we can go back and do additional research. Also, I want to note that there were some comments around the cost, or the city may be able to do this work with our contractors. I would just caution you to say, if anyone is thinking the city may be able to do this work cheaper, typically when the public and our public bidding and our public contracting, when we do the work, it's typically more expensive. So just know that going into it. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you to help process us to potential direction for city
We need
staff.
to get to that. Councilmember Cox?
I mentioned this earlier, but looking at the codes that are already there, a lot of this is referred again to the Planning Commission. They'll do the finding on the appeals. I think that we're in agreement that maybe we need a little bit more information about this. I think that because we've only talked about residential and haven't hit on the $200,000 threshold and what it might mean to include the non-residential in this, I would be happy to support a motion having Planning Commission give recommendation of this first and potentially draft a plan, if there would be support for that.
You're going to make the motion?
I am making a motion to have a Planning Commission review this, and with staff's additional information, more of a cost analysis, and bring that finding to council.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Cox and a second by Vice Mayor Gonzalez for that. Councilmember Chahal, your hand is up.
I raised my hand to make a motion that I understand Councilmember Cox's point that we should bring it back to Planning Commission. I think it is more time consuming when we go there. Basically, we have all the data what we need to be, and its impact is on few number of residents, and it's a drop in a bucket of improvements we are trying to do on the city, where we have a $700+ million ADA and sidewalk improvements. So I would like to make an alternate motion that I would like that council amend the section 17.15 of the city code to eliminate existing requirement for residents, the requirement to street improvement retroactively.
City manager, even if we wanted to do that, could we do that tonight? I'm not sure we can. So no, we can't. So city manager, city attorney, please explain.
You take it and then
Councilmember
I'll follow
Chahal.
up.
Yeah, I appreciate the clear direction, and we desire clear direction, but you're not taking action on the code sections tonight. It really is for us to solicit what the majority or more of the council wants to do, and then if in fact you're at a stage where you want us to bring back a particular thing, we would bring that back for council consideration and action where it's more fully and properly noticed for action. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
This hasn't been fully baked yet. I would like to get more input on this, because the downside to this for the city is that it takes on a tremendous expense. The upside, of course, for residents is it's one less requirement when you're doing your major development. And I'd like to see what it looks like if we increase the square footage or did something so it was more in line with trying to encourage people to remodel their homes or build their ADUs. We want encouragement of that. But we have to look at the consequence and the impact of the city. And I'm not sure we have that at this point. I'd like to hear what the Planning Commission has to say and explore this a little bit more. I don't feel comfortable just doing that at this moment. City Manager?
The city attorney is actually looking at the section of our Muni Code that governs the work of Planning Commission. Right now, we're not sure that this type of item would go to the Planning Commission.
I see.
So with that, I would say that certainly staff would need to do more work if a majority of the city council felt that some adjustment to the rule would be necessary. So we can certainly, if so directed, do that staff work. And if it is appropriate to take it to the Planning Commission, we would take it to them for comment, but ultimately it would come back to the city council. I would also say Councilmember Chahal mentioned retroactivity. Certainly that is within the policy discretion of the city council. There are a number of discussions that would need to happen around that. How many months we go back? How many do we go back a year? How people would submit information to be reimbursed, and staff does have not talked about retroactivity in detail, and so we would need to go back and talk internally as well as with the city attorney's office about retroactivity.
Retroactivity is something that is going to be very problematic, and it's not something we do when we change our policies. It's going forward, not backwards. I don't see any reason why we would do that. So, but I also believe that there can be a change to this policy, but give us all the information so we can make our educated decisions on, knowing full well what the impact will be on the city, which is, important in this sense. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. We have Councilmember Park followed by Chahal.
Yeah, I do have some questions on what you mean by we cannot take action on this. If I look at the way that it's agendized, it's staff update and solicitation of council input, or direction on a city council request to revise chapter 1715 of the city code. I believe that the direction on city council request to revise chapter 1715 of the city code could allow a change of the type that Councilmember Chahal is requesting. I also want to note that I think that the problem is exactly in what the mayor said. The mayor mentioned that the downside to the city is that the city would take on an enormous expense if we changed it away from the residents, but she's suggesting that we keep this enormous expense on the residents. I think that's my
I
problem
didn't
with
suggest that at all.
But that's what the
That's not what
suggestion is, that
Please
the,
don't speak for yourself.
by taking
Councilmember Park. Councilmember Park.
I am talking,
Speak
it is
for
my time.
yourself.
That's
Thank
correct.
you.
I'm speaking for myself by not putting this enormous expense on the, to taking it on with the city, that we are keeping this enormous expense on the residents. That's what the implication is. And at some point, I would like to adjust this. I think that when there's commercial properties, if there are people are remodeling their houses, I'll look at the picture, and looks like at least one of those pictures looks like it was part of a complete house remodel. But when people are making changes that they did not expect, if it's an ADU, they had no expectation that there was a driveway change that had to be made. And again, when I look at when I look at the agreements that were there, it does not specify you must make these changes. In fact, the wording on this particular one says may be required, and it leaves it as vague as that. There were no specified changes that were required. There's nothing that says you have to do this. And in those cases, we really need to not shock the owners after they've already put the money in, put the work in for their changes. Right. At some point, the work that they're doing to update something that was not even planned should not be a major percentage of the work that they are doing to update their houses and try to make their houses more livable. In some cases, making arrangements for elderly, making arrangements for family members who are moving back in or growing. This should not be a shock.
Assistant City Clerk, I'm sorry, I didn't see it earlier. You have something to report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier, our city attorney provided an update with regards to our one-way broadcast streaming channels. And the update now is that Facebook dropped the live stream because of the bandwidth issues. However, YouTube is working fine.
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate that. City Attorney?
Yes, Madam Mayor. In terms of action that's properly agendized for you to take action tonight, the way this item is agendized, it is not for you to actually implement the code section change tonight. It's clearly soliciting input and direction. If the council wants to direct us to bring back a particular kind of code amendment, that would absolutely be in order. And of course, if there's a clear enough, consensus amongst you as to exactly what you want brought back, that would be within council purview tonight, but not the actual implementation of the code change.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Chahal, I don't know if your hand was left up or you want to speak again.
Madam Mayor.
It's up. As mentioned by city manager, that it doesn't fall under the purview of the planning commission. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I can make a motion that staff bring back, as per the discussion today, staff can bring back this item back to revise, amend the section 1715 of the city code to eliminate the existing requirement for residents, the requirement to street improvement retroactively. And I know there are not many. I don't know out of those 25, 50, 60, how many have already complied with, how many have not complied with. When I say retroactive, if somebody has not complied with due to economic conditions, because they did not anticipate this thing, they did not do any improvement in the front of their house, they only did in the back or in the existing beyond the driveway. So we should be thinking about retroactively who cannot afford to do these things. So I make that motion that we staff look into it and bring us the options back to the council.
City Attorney, we have a motion and a second already on the floor. Are you saying that motion that's on the floor is not applicable?
No, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to add some a clarification based on what Councilmember Chahal's statement was. The city manager indicated I was looking into whether this was in the purview, of the Planning Commission. It's not crystal clear, big surprise the way our code's drafted, that it is or not. I will say that it's not legally required to go to them for you to act, but it's not outside their jurisdiction. So if the council desired, for that step to be included, that would be appropriate, but it's not
Okay.
required.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So we do have a motion and second on the floor. Councilmember Hardy.
I wanted to make a friendly amendment to the motion of, because being on Planning Commission, we were not allowed to consider the costs of things. And that was part of the requirement for the Planning Commission. So my thought was to refer this back to staff with, and get input from Planning Commission.
So both Planning Commission and staff input on costs and other things that the Planning Commission is not.
If the maker of the motion is amenable to that.
Who was it, Vice Mayor? Are you okay with that? Okay, all right. All right, so we have a new motion and second on the floor. Councilmember Park, you've spoken a lot on this item.
Yes,
Is
but
there
now
anything new that you would like to
Yes,
say?
now we have a new motion, and I'm allowed to speak on every change and every motion that's on the table. So I
please
wish
move
you'd
on.
really allow us to follow the process. So my question is, being on Planning Commission, you know what Planning Commission to do, and I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that Planning Commission was not supposed to consider the fiscal aspects of projects at all. That was not in fact, the findings, you were disallowed from considering that. I just had this discussion with somebody else. But my question is, referring this back to staff with input from Planning Commission, what do you expect Planning Commission to do to give input? How would they give input on this? What would the input from Planning Commission comprise? Like, what would that input be? Because it seems to me that Councilmember Chall's request simply to take this to staff and get staff to make a recommendation or give input on actions that could be taken, not just direction, not just solicitation, not just a discussion, but actions that could be taken to update the city code would be more worthwhile at this point. It's a question, like what do we expect?
Who are you
I'm asking the
addressing
maker of
your
the motion.
question to?
Yeah, if that's
It's
addressed
this
to me.
way, if that's what you're looking at.
Well, I'm making the person that was talking about the friendly amendment. The friendly amendment was made by Councilmember Hardy, so that's where we'd go. But if Councilmember Cox, the maker of the original motion, would like to answer that question, that would be fine with me as well.
It is my understanding, if I may answer, that these appeals and the findings will go to Planning Commission, so I'm assuming they see these quite frequently, would be able to speak to how often there is issues with it, people complaining. It says here in Table 3 that if the Planning Commission finds on appeal that the proposed activity has significant impact on the area, then there is the requirement that falls into place. I think that we have this body to do this kind of work and see it more frequently. While they might not speak to the cost, I think we're bypassing a critical step if we just make this decision on policy. And while we will make the policy, I think that we build out commissions to be able to make recommendations for us.
Okay, thank you. Assistant City Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Oh, City Manager?
Just a quick clarification. It's my understanding that the motion is to direct staff to bring back a elimination of this requirement. I just want clarity on if that is the motion, or would you like options?
Okay, Councilmember Cox, please repeat the motion. Everyone pay attention, please. Please repeat the motion.
Well, perhaps I agreed with the friendly amendment, so do I need Karen?
With the friendly
Yeah,
amendment,
okay.
yes.
So my motion is for staff to bring back further information that is including a cost analysis, perhaps some scenarios if we do retroactive pay, so that we can make a decision on it. My motion is not to have the staff throw this out and bring us that paper or that language right now. I would like further information. And then the friendly amendment agreed upon is to have Planning Commission take a look at it as well. Perhaps before you bring it back to us.
Fair.
Okay. Do you understand, City Manager?
Yes, but one more clarification. In your statements around retroactive, you mentioned the cost. When I heard Councilmember Jahal articulate what he meant about retroactive, what he was saying was anyone that has pulled a permit and has this requirement and has not performed it would be alleviated of the, relieved of the requirement. I just want to understand, are we looking at potentially reimbursing residents for the costs that they incurred, or is the council looking to alleviate somewhat of the potential requirement that isn't an active permit?
I think with my motion, I would recommend that you do both.
That we look into both?
Knowing how our council goes, it would probably be beneficial to have all that information.
Okay.
Councilmember Chahal, is your hand up from before, or do you have any new information? Thank you.
Yes. So when I said retroactively, I do not mean that city has to reimburse the people who already done with it, first of all. I do not mean that. I've only meant what the city manager partially mentioned, that if we issued a permit asking somebody to do this thing and they have not complied with it, they should not be made mandated to comply with it retroactively. That's my only, if somebody has not done it, they should not be complied with it. But I can support the planning commission, but this matter has been going on for more than almost 6 months, at least 6 months. And if we put it to planning commission, this is going again into a loop, whereas staff has all the information, city council has most of the information, and we are directing staff to bring it back to the council for decision making. But it is a bureaucratic step that we want the planning commission. I served as a planning commission for 5 years. There was nothing like this ever came back from a council that we need to make a change in the code, and planning commission has to do that thing, basically, opine on that.
We probably never asked them.
I will reluctantly support it, but ideally it should be brought back directly to the council.
All right, Councilmember Park, last shot. Anything new?
So I'm looking at the motion, which is staff bring back further information, including cost analysis and retroactive analysis, not for staff to eliminate the code section, with input from Planning Commission. And what's missing for me is what the action portion of that action, what that motion would be, which is for action to change 1715 to, in any way, could be update. And I just want to be very clear on what this is, because again, the way that items are agendized is very important, because we are disallowed from doing changes. We are disallowed from going outside of a study. We're disallowed from making decisions on a report. We're disallowed from these kinds of things. So I need to be very clear on what the motion from Councilmember Cox would be.
City Clerk, if you repeat the motion, please, and then we're going to vote.
This is what I have captured. Please correct me to the makers of the motion. Council has referred this back to staff for further review, with council input received this evening on cost analysis and retroactive analysis, and return with options, and also include planning commission review as well.
Yes, is that all right? Motion maker and motions.
That's what we wanted to clarify, and we're comfortable with that. That's our understanding.
Still retroactive both ways, or only eliminating?
Okay.
It's easy enough to optionize.
All right, City Clerk, when you're ready.
So, Councilmember Cox is the maker of the motion, and
Vice Mayor Gonzalez, second.
I got it backwards. Thank you.
And I had that amendment in it.
She's the maker. You're the second. Councilmember Chahal.
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Councilmember Jane.
Yes.
Councilmember Cox.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore.
Yes, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is action on a City Council Policy 030, request for information on public participation options and audio-visual AV and broadcasting requirements for potential off-site City Council meetings, and direction to staff deferred from that June 23rd, 2026 meeting. Was it Vice Mayor? Do you want to talk on that, or City Manager? What?
I'll do either.
Okay. Would you like the City Manager? Go ahead. Go ahead. And then, boom.
When I saw this, and one of the questions was as far as possibly moving our meetings around to different spots, like the Northside Library, like Central Park. and understanding SB 707 that we have to have a remote option for our constituents, for our community. The cost implications of this is pretty high, so for me to move forward with this, I would say that we not move forward with this and just maintain the status quo. So that would be my well, I don't know if it's a motion or we can just get rid. Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
Are you voting against your own 030?
Yes.
Strange things happen
made a
in the
motion.
city
I'll make a
council
motion.
chair.
I'll second that.
Maintain.
All right.
Because I know the cost with Bosca when we have to travel and be in different places, and when we are in the same place and are able to set up, it brings the cost down, and it is more, we get more participation. So I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second, but I think we should maybe city manager give a brief update on this, and then let's go to the public, and then.
Sure.
Sure. You know, it's a little unusual, but yeah.
Sure. So a motion was made by Councilmember Jahal and seconded by Councilmember Cox to agendize a review. Hello? Off? I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Cox to agendize a review of public participation options such as public presentations only for in-person public speakers or holding council meetings at alternative locations outside of the city council chamber. Consistent with our 030 policy, staff went back. We did a high-level analysis of that. You have a staff report as well as a presentation, which are both in the public record. Council Member Gonzalez or Vice Mayor Gonzalez articulated that the costs are high, and so in the packet to install the audio-visual equipment at the Northside Library would be approximately $150,000, and to install the AV equipment at the Northside Library as well as the Central Library would be approximately $260,000, with additional ongoing costs if we have meetings at those locations as well as for licensing of software. And so I think we had a motion by Councilmember Gonzalez, having received the information to no longer proceed, and the mayor was going to make sure that we took public comment on this item before the council vote.
Councilmember Chahal, your hand is up. Raj?
Sorry, Mayor.
Okay.
I lowered it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Gonzalez, second by Councilmember Hardy to withdraw. Councilmember Cox?
Yeah, I'm going to be supportive of the motion, but I would like to say one of the reasons I was prepared/excited to talk about this, because again, if the goal really is to get more participation and civic engagement, I think a lot of things that have been brought up tonight show us that we can do that by tightening up what we're doing in council right now as well. We've talked a little bit about the preparation of our slides, the timeliness of getting our packets, making sure that we have full information going in, even the meeting minutes. And so if we are going to bring this back for discussion, I think what I'd like to look at is just the decorum of our meetings right now, making sure that council members are given the full opportunity to participate with all of the information, that we understand what robust discussion really is, that we use our time well, and that we can hopefully have a meeting that draws public in, because we're doing a good job up here.
Interesting. Okay. Assistant City Clerk, when you're ready. Please register.
Councilmember Shahal.
Sorry, I was going to. So tempting, so tempting.
Councilmember Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Councilmember Jane.
The thing on my screen says adopt. I'm not sure.
That's a
what-
default.
We're doing it
We-
verbally.
But I understand that, but what's written here on my screen says adopt, which is different than up there. It says maintain current practice.
Right, adopt
So-
is a default in the system.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm voting for maintain current practice. Yes.
Me too, yes.
Councilmember Cox?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Mayor Gilmore?
Yes, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. Last item on the agenda. Action on a council written request, Council Policy 030, submitted by Councilmember Jane to place an item on a future council agenda regarding a policy limiting the type and quality of water used by data centers. Councilmember Jane?
Yes, I'll read from the actual 030 that I proposed with some clarifications. The city of Santa Clara is home to 58 data centers, which is only limited by the lack of transmission to supply power and future data supply power for current and future data centers. SVP is investing heavily to expand the transmission and distribution to support almost double the data center load. Recently, there has been a lot of opposition nationwide to building data centers, primarily because of climate impacts and water usage. There's currently about 180 moratoriums around the country. Santa Clara has benefited greatly financially from these data centers, currently providing about $41 million to our general fund, which is 13%. In the 2022 Santa Clara Climate Action Plan, I pushed hard to mandate that all new data centers be carbon neutral with the ability to purchase offsets or RECs. There was little or no opposition by the data centers, and it addressed the climate change concerns from CO2 emissions for the electricity being consumed. It has not detracted from building data centers in Santa Clara. There's a huge appetite. So also, many of the cities that passed the moratoriums were deeply concerned about water usage by data centers for cooling. Many of the newer data centers in Santa Clara have minimal water consumption and serve as models for data centers nationwide. However, Santa Clara, while it does have a policy on CO2 emissions, it does not have a policy on limiting water use by data centers. So I'm hereby requesting that the City of Santa Clara create a policy which limits the type of water used by data centers and the quantity of water used by future data centers. There should also be a discussion regarding participation in any future demand-side grid support programs to help support and maintain our grid during heat events. So for reference, the 2024 EIR for the 2805 Bowers Data Center states, the BDC could require water when outside air temperatures approach design, 89 degrees Fahrenheit, to augment its adiabatic cooling system using evaporative pads on the rooftop air-cooled chillers. The data center would be designed to use up to a half acre foot of water per year of recycled water via the proposed recycled water pipeline extension, and a potable water connection that would be provided as a backup source to the recycled water system. So for reference, a typical single-family residence uses about 0.3 to 0.5 acre feet of water. So this 72 megawatt data center uses less than 2 families of water for cooling per year. And then I'm going to talk about a
No, we're going to put
an article
vote to put it on the agenda or not,
Yes.
but you're giving a full presentation, so.
I am advocating for why we should put it on the agenda. Okay, there's an article in the newspaper recently. It says the largest data center in California has been denied water for cooling. Now it's suing a public agency. And it reads, however, tech companies building new data centers won't go down without a fight, it seems, and the events transpiring in Imperial Valley, California are a prime example. After the Imperial Irrigation District, a government agency in charge of delivering the fresh water from the Colorado River to the area, denied the data center developers' request to use the water supply and wastewater for cooling, Imperial Valley Computer Manufacturing filed a lawsuit. The company is planning to build the largest center in the state, a 330 megawatt monstrosity. The facility will require 287 million gallons of water per year. So what I'm saying is that we put in a requirement for the carbon emissions from data centers, but we have not put in a requirement for water use. We know that data centers can operate with very little water use. So I'm asking for us to look into how we would limit, talking to data centers, talking to stakeholders, a requirement that limits the water use of data centers.
Councilmember Hardy.
I'd like to make a motion to put this on our future agenda as soon as staff is able to do so.
All right, is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Hardy, second by Councilmember Jane. Councilmember Park. Again, just to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, and I think that Councilmember Jane, and I'm reading the 030 report, it talks about a lot of different things, but I want to make sure that that how it's placed on the agenda would be open to whatever the discussion comes up with, meaning that it wouldn't be a discussion of just what's here. It could be a discussion of different types of options. I mean, we're asking to put this on the agenda. It's just regarding a policy limiting the type and quantity of water used by the data centers. I want to know that the discussion would be robust, and that the options that could be decided upon could also be wide-ranging. I just want to make sure that that's the case.
Usually on 030s, it's exactly what they're asking for.
And what
That's what's
exactly
on
what they're
the-
asking for is not very clear.
Mayor, I asked for a consideration of the demand-side grid support program as well as the water use.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Cox.
I just wanted clarification because I think Councilmember Jane, you mentioned in part of it that you wanted to do stakeholder and data center input. Is that going to be part of the feedback that we get? You know, I think we've done such a great job in Santa Clara showing what goes right already. And so I would happily support, like you said, getting stakeholder and the data center's input on this as well.
When staff brings it back to us, I imagine that
Yeah,
that's
great.
what they
I
normally
wanted
do.
that clarification.
That's great. Councilmember Park, again.
No,
Okay, thank you. Councilmember
not.
Jane, your light's on? Okay. We have, let's go, we have a motion, we had a motion and a second, right? Okay. Let's go to the public. Would any member of the public like to speak on this issue? On whether or not we should put on the agenda? Edward, go ahead, Edward.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to have that placed on the agenda. Just want to say I'm hoping we do not approve any AI data centers in the future. They're monster data centers, and look what's happening in Lake Tahoe. All those thousands of people are being told that they're not going to be having power, and of course, I'm worried about the water problem that this might cause. And I'm hearing about animals and our pollinators, how they're being killed off from these AI data centers. And I guess it has something to do with the frequency of the noise that these AI data centers are making. I think I've posted that on your Facebook page, Mayor. Yeah.
Among other things, Edward. Among other things.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world today. All right, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for being up at this hour. Thank you. I don't see anyone else. Do you, staff? Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Hardy, second by Councilmember Jane, to place this on a future agenda when staff is available to place it on. As soon as you can place this on.
Councilmember Shahal.
Yes.
Councilmember Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Councilmember Jane.
Yes, what's on the screen there says only water, but we also talked about the demand-side grid support program.
Advanced grid support.
Demand-side grid support.
Demand-side grid support. Okay, we'll add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other reports of members of, did somebody say something? City manager?
You were going to ask for reports. I do have a.
Oh, not you yet.
Yeah.
Council member, any council member reports?
I just got something quickly. I went to go visit the NCPA Hydro office up in, it's by Murphy and the Collier Powerhouse. So just, we should get a chance to go see that. It's nice. Murphy's a small little town, which is nice, quaint little town. So nice to go visit.
Thank you. All right, city manager.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. A comment was made earlier today during public presentations by former Councilmember Becker, and so I just would like to take a moment to state for the record that the statement that I said, and I quote, he said that in response to a request for a meeting to discuss regulations on data centers, former Councilmember Becker said that I said I do not want to rock the boat with big data. I would just like to say for the record that is patently false. In fact, I do remember a request from Councilmember Becker to have a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the City Council. As many of you will recall, that actually occurred, and the city wrote an entire white paper on data centers and had a joint
City
meeting.
manager, we don't respond to public presentations because we'd be here all night. So we appreciate that, but there's no need to respond to that.
I know, Mayor. It's just while I recognize that I'm a public official, albeit not an elected public official, it was shocking to have a patently false statement made in public about something I said or allegedly said.
Okay, we appreciate that. All right. We are now going to adjourn back to closed session, right? So with that, Councilmember Park.
Yes. I had my.
You did not have any hand
and then
up.
it was turned off.
You did not have any hand up. You did not.
I did raise my hand. Yeah, Scully up now.
Just turned it on, so don't blame other people.
Oh, I had this on.
What do you have to say?
It's because I also have a report. I mean, I think that the policy is we need to give a report within 15 days of the event, so I submitted this
when I call for council reports, that's when you put your hand up and speak.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
But that did not happen, so please don't blame others for your mistake.
I did put this up. And then you went to city manager. And again, this is a clarification, which is I believe the policy is within 15 days. We did not have a council meeting within 15 days of the event, so I submitted this by email. But in July, I attended the 3rd Annual AAPI Lead Summit in Los Angeles. This organization is important and different in that it comprises AAPI elected officials nationwide, whereas many AAPI organizations are more locally focused or focused on a very small jurisdiction. It is patterned very much after NBC Leo, and we often share time, spaces, and stories with NBC Leo. I arrived in Los Angeles. We had volunteer programs where food distribution projects that every elected official worked on before the actual meeting started. In fact, I think we were so efficient that on the first day, we completed all of the food distribution packets that were intended for the course of the 3 days. We had a lot of good evening talks. We had a surprise visit, well, not a surprise, a planned surprise visit by Kamala Harris. Talked about a lot of issues. I was particularly impressed with Speaker Isabel Jurado, who was the first Filipino elected official, city council member in Los Angeles. And the issues of AI, the issues of education, the issues of again, Asian representation, the fact that we aggregate when we talk about numbers and we want to talk about strength, but we disaggregate when it comes to actual issues. These are big problems. And I will keep it short. But it was a worthwhile conference. I wish that other council members would go to the conferences so that we could have share experiences and we can talk about these kinds of things. But it was really great talking to other AAPI officials in the area and then meeting with them after we returned to the Bay Area because of conversations that were sparked hundreds of miles away from where we lived. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, quick read in on item 1B when you're ready.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. As indicated earlier, we trailed item 1B for potential discussions again later this evening. So we're going to go back in on item 1B, which is conference with labor negotiators. They're all listed on the agenda, so I won't read them again. But I do want to say that I will come out and report out on reportable actions to the chambers, and will also report out again at the next meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So, City Attorney, do I adjourn the meeting now, or just wait till you all come?
No, you can adjourn to closed session, and then that's sufficient, Madam Mayor.
All right,
And then
thank you.
after closed session to the next meeting.
All right. This meeting's adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everyone.